I back out the driveway, throw my truck in drive, and zigzag through traffic on my way to my best friend's house. 5 minutes earlier, Andre called. Yo, T, come to the house. I got something to show you. Can't you just tell me what it is over the phone? No, you gotta see it in person. 10 minutes later, I pull up to his split level house. I knock on the door. Come in, I'm downstairs, Andre shouted. I go downstairs and into his room. What's so important I had to come over here to see? Check this out. Andre digs into his pocket and pulls a picture of a cute girl. Who is this? That's Jessica, Andre replies. So you had me come to your house to show me a picture of a girl? No. How do you think I met her? At the mall, I answer, with a smile on his face. Andre grabs his backpack and pulls out his laptop. Pointing at his computer, Andre says, I met her online. Yeah, right. I promise I met her online in a chat room. She's coming to see me tomorrow. If you want, stop by the house and I'll introduce you. Skeptical, I oblige him. As I pulled up to his house the next day, I noticed a white Jeep Cherokee parked in the driveway. I knock on the door. Andre lets me in and whispers, she's downstairs. He leads me downstairs and into his room. Hey, Jessica, I would like to introduce you to my best friend, Tim. Lying on the bed was the cute girl from the picture. Hey, nice to meet you, Tim. I'm Jessica. My mind was blown. My friend actually picked up a girl he met online. That was crazy to me. What is common nowadays was unheard of in the early 2000s when the internet was just taking off. Back then, there was no Wi-Fi. To get online, you would connect your telephone line to your computer, then spend the next minute listening to that annoying dial-up sound. There were no dating apps, Facebook, or Instagram. If you wanted to get a girl's number, you had to approach her. If you approached her correctly, you would get her number. But if you didn't, you got rejected. I was a shy guy. I didn't like approaching girls. I would get anxious every time I asked a girl for her number. Most girls don't understand what it takes for a guy to see a girl he likes and ask for her number. Fear of rejection is real. Not that it happened to me often, but the few times it has happened was a blow to my ego. So, when my best friend met Jessica online, I saw it as a way to meet girls without having to directly deal with rejection. Although Jessica and Andre's relationship didn't last very long, how they met stuck with me. A year later, I'm in my apartment, studying for a psychology exam. Before I shut down my computer, I noticed a pop-up ad that read, join the largest messenger on the internet, Yahoo Messenger, and chat with singles in your area. That pop-up ad reminded me of my friend's fling with Jessica. If Andre could find love online, I could too, I thought. I signed up and found a chat room for single women seeking single men. I introduced myself to the chat by typing my made-up name, age, and where I was from. But my intro didn't get noticed by anyone in the chat, so I changed my approach. Instead of introducing myself like everyone else, I would include something interesting about me. Adding an entertaining detail about me would give a girl something to talk to me about, I thought. And I was right. I started getting noticed. One girl asked, would you like to chat one-on-one? Then another woman reached out to chat. Before I knew it, I had 3 chats going all at once. It was exciting. I felt like I was moving closer to meeting someone like Jessica, but juggling all these conversations was a little overwhelming. I needed to know who I had chemistry with. I knew the only way I could find out who I was compatible with was to talk outside of the chat room. So I messaged each girl. I'm really enjoying our conversation, but I would like to see if we had chemistry outside of this chat room. Would you like to exchange numbers? I'm just here to kill some time, the first girl replied. I haven't heard back from the second girl. Sure, here's my number. By the way, my name is April, replied the third girl. I took down April's number and called her the next night. Speaking to someone on the phone for the first time can be awkward, but not with April. She was easy to talk to. What was supposed to be a short phone call became an hour-and-a-half engaging conversation. I enjoyed talking to April so much that we spoke daily. April spoke with a slightly high-pitched, feminine voice that could soothe a crying baby. I loved the sound of her voice. I would get butterflies whenever I heard April say my name. From our calls, I learned April was 28, had a 3-year-old son, and had a passion for food. She loved cooking and was in school to be a chef. Her son's father was 35 and active in her child's life. When I found out April was 28 and attracted a guy who was 35 years old, I thought, man, this girl got to be fine. She had checked off all my boxes, and I was into her. At this point, I needed to move quickly. I didn't want another guy to move in and steal her from me. We needed to meet face to face. So I said to April, we've been talking on the phone for the last 2 weeks, and I like you. Would you like to meet in person? Without hesitation, April said, yes, I'm free Saturday. We decided to meet up at a neutral location, and from there, we would decide on a restaurant to go to. I was so excited, I could barely contain myself. It's Saturday, the day of our meetup. I opened up my laptop and MapQuest the meetup location. Before leaving the house, I told my brother where I was going and made my way to Marietta. I arrived at the location. I was a few minutes early and waited in the gas station's parking lot until April came. 5 minutes later, a green Silverado with tinted windows pulled into the parking lot. It was April. I was so nervous, my heart was beating out my chest. This was it. I was finally going to meet my internet crush. I got out of my car and walked over to April's truck. As I approached, she cracked her window barely an inch. A pair of olive-shaped eyes stared back at me from the partially open window. Then she said, hey Tim, there's an IHOP less than a mile down the road from here. Would you like to eat there? Yeah, that's cool, I replied. Follow me, April said. Then she immediately rolled up her window. I got back in my car, and as I followed her, something didn't feel right. Why wouldn't April roll her window all the way down? We've talked for a couple of weeks and shared a lot about each other. Why was she being so secretive now? As I pushed those thoughts out of my mind, it became clear why she didn't roll her window down. When we pulled into the IHOP parking lot, I parked my car next to April's truck. When she exited her truck, April was not what I had expected. I had envisioned April being 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighing about 145 to 150 pounds, with curves built to please. But the person that got out of the truck was 5 feet 3 inches tall and tipped the scales at over 300 pounds. I was stunned. Not only was April out of shape, but she didn't seem to care how she looked. Her micro braids weren't groomed, and she didn't even dress up for the meetup. It looked as if she had just rolled out of bed. If that wasn't bad enough, she even brought her 3-year-old son. I was dumbstruck. Here I was, thinking I would meet my beautiful online crush, only to have the rug pulled from underneath me. After shaking off my initial shock, I figured I would make the most out of a bad situation and complete the date. We walked into the restaurant and were greeted by the hostess, who guided us to a booth. 4 guys were talking and having a good time a few tables from our booth. I was so embarrassed that every time they would laugh, it felt like they were laughing at me. After we were seated at our booth, our waiter asked if we were ready to order. Yeah, I have 3 buttermilk pancakes and an apple juice, I said. I had an appetite, but didn't want to order a large meal. The sooner we could finish our food, the sooner this date would be over. But then April ordered. I'll have a Rooty Tooty fresh and fruity, hash browns, scrambled eggs, a side of sausages, French toast, and a Diet Coke, April replied. With the menu in front of our face, I tried to hide my shock. April ordered enough food to feed 3 or 4 people. You would think we were having a banquet if you didn't know any better. Even the guy seated across from us took notice when the waiter returned with our food. Maybe she won't eat it all, I thought. That was too much food for a woman and small child to eat at one time. Surely, they'll need a to-go container. But I was wrong. April and her son consumed all their food. Needless to say, April and I didn't talk much. Well, I'll say April attempted to start a conversation with me in between bites. She kept asking me if I was going to call her again afterward, and I kept lying, trying to convince her that I would, but I felt deceived. I kept thinking April wasn't the person I thought I was talking to online. At this point, I had lost my appetite, and April noticed that I hadn't touched my pancakes. I saw her glance at me, then glance at my pancakes, then look at me and look back at my plate. And she said something I wasn't expecting. While eyeing my plate, she said, "Are you going to eat those?" pointing at my pancakes. I shook my head no and slid her my plate. After April finished my pancakes, we left. Deflated, I walked her to her truck. I hugged her as she asked if I would call her again. Putting on my best poker face, I told her I would call her as soon as I made it home. We never spoke again, and I never told my brother about this meetup. In fact, it took me 4 years to consider online dating again after this experience. After some self-reflection, I realized I made a few mistakes with April that led to me being deceived. First, I didn't ask April for a picture. One of the reasons why my best friend found success with chat rooms was that he always asked for a picture. Although sending pictures online in the early 2000s were more challenging, it wasn't impossible. Second, I assumed April was attractive based on flawed, preconceived notions that I had. Just because a younger woman attracts an older guy doesn't mean that woman would be attractive to me. Everyone is attracted to different physical attributes. And last, I was naive about the internet. In the early 2000s, the internet was so new to me that the idea that someone would misrepresent themselves never even entered my mind. But I took everything that I learned from this experience to avoid being fooled in the future. And years later, I found my wife on a popular dating app. But that's a story for another day.